Hey guys, Jenny K. Brown here. With all that's going on in the world right now, particularly with this election season, we're throwing a lot of shame and blame around. You don't believe what I believe, and therefore you are wrong, and you're a bad person. That's shame, folks. We're shaming each other, and that's not making this a better place. With all of the shame that's being thrown around, it's caused me to dive back into the works of Dr. Brene Brown. She does a lot of research on shame and vulnerability and wholehearted living. And I wanted to share with you her definition for shame. Shame is the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. Bottom line, it's the feeling that I am not enough. You know that feeling you get when somebody says something or does something and it really gets your blood boiling? Chances are they've triggered your shame. Something that they've done or something that they've said has hit one of your shame triggers that has made you feel like I'm not enough. Now, with all that's going on with the election, we're doing a lot of shaming and blaming. We hear someone's point of view and we immediately fire back with, you're not a good person because you believe that way. We're not being vulnerable and we're not being authentic with each other, and it's poisoning our society right now. So why can't we just reach out to each other and say, well, why is it that you feel that way? Please share with me your perspective. What led you to believe this way? It's not a matter of trying to change their opinion. It's learning to understand their perspective. Why do they feel that way? Why do they think that way? Instead, oftentimes we fire back. And why? Because something that they've said or something that they have done has hit our shame trigger. When they say that they believe a certain way, that takes too much courage for us to say, please help me to understand why you feel that way, in a compassionate type of way. Dr. Taylor Hartman, who does the color code, and if you know the type of work that I do a lot of work with the color code, he basically says that there are two reactions that we can have when we're wrestling with shame and insecurity. We can puff up with arrogance, or we can shrink with self-pity. And if you know the four colors, the reds and the yellows tend to lean more towards the arrogance side. So when in that hole of shame and insecurity, someone throws a ladder in to help them out, and they fire back with, why are you throwing me that ladder? I don't need a ladder. I know how to get out. I'll get out when I'm ready. When blues and whites are in their hole of self-pity, someone throws a ladder and they look at it with doubt. I don't think that's the way out. I don't think that's going to help me. You don't understand what I'm going through. You can't know what I'm going through because I have it worse than anybody has ever had it. You just don't get it. That's not the way out. In both cases, you're wrestling with mistrust. They're looking at that ladder of help with doubt. So how do we combat that? Well, as someone walking by the hole, it's not to stand there, look down at them and say, I feel really sorry for you down there. Hope you get out. Here's a ladder. See you later. That's not going to help. What we've got to do is we've got to climb down in there with them. Be compassionate. Be empathetic. I know how you feel. I have felt that way before, and it really sucks. Here's how I got out. Let me share with you some perspective. But that's too scary for most of us. That requires too much courage and too much vulnerability. And in this society, vulnerability is viewed as weakness. Why is that? Why is it weakness to be authentic with each other? This is how I really feel. Let me share these feelings with you. No, it's much easier to fire back. Those shields and that armor that we carry around to deflect all of those things that we don't agree with, we don't like, that hit our shame triggers. And if you don't think that you have had your shame triggers hit, when was the last time someone said something that got your blood boiling? When was the last time somebody said something and you immediately felt like you needed to get away and out of that situation. That was a shame trigger. I've got news for you, folks. We are all in that hole right now. We as a nation are up to our eyeballs in insecurity and doubt and shame and fear and hate. We hate the two candidates. We hate politics. We hate the laws. We hate the way the world is. We hate each other's beliefs. It's a lot of hate, folks. And it all stems from shame. Now, I know you're sitting there thinking, well, how does my view on abortion have anything to do with shame? Well, it's not necessarily your stance, but it's how someone makes you feel for having that stance. You're not a good person because of the way that you feel. And chances are the way you feel or the belief that you have is deeply rooted in a level of vulnerability from another place in your life. Maybe your stance on abortion stems from the fact that you know someone who couldn't have kids. And so how dare you kill those poor innocent babies? Or maybe you have your stance on abortion because you know someone whose life was threatened and they had no choice but to abort. They had to abort that baby in order to save their own life. What if you are one of those two people? What if you're the one who couldn't have kids? And so how dare you kill those babies? Or what if you're the one who had a life-threatening condition and so you had to abort that baby? And how dare you say that I'm a bad person because I did that? That's where the shame comes from, folks. It's deeply rooted. And we are throwing it all around right now because it's a lot easier to blame the other person and shame them for the way that they feel than to say, hey, I have a tough story and that's why I feel the way that I do. So here's the challenge, folks. Hashtag Compassion Crusade. Let's stop slinging the mud. Let's stop slinging the hate and the shame and the blame and the mistrust. And let's start listening. Let's start listening to each other. Why do you feel the way you do? What's your story? Own your story and share it. And listen to other stories. Let's work to make this world a better place, folks. Hashtag Compassion Crusade. Let's show a little compassion for each other. That's the challenge. How are you going to carry on the Compassion Crusade? Have a great day.